Hi there, and welcome back to the garden. I'm Eleanor. But before we dig in, I'd love for you to do one little thing for me. Down in the comments, tell me this. What's the one thing about your own front yard that's been driving you a little crazy lately? Maybe there's a spot that never looks quite right, or something you've just never figured out. Go on and get it off your chest. I read every single comment, and there's a good chance we'll tackle it together right here in today's video. Now, today's video is a little different from my usual. And I'll be honest with you, it might sting just a tiny bit. Because today, we're walking through the 10 most common front yard mistakes, the quiet little habits that make a home look smaller, cheaper, and more neglected than it really is. And here's what I want you to understand before we start. Almost none of these have anything to do with money. That's the part folks get wrong. They think a beautiful front yard is about spending a fortune on fancy plants. But I've seen homes with the most expensive landscaping in the neighborhood that still look off. And I've seen modest little houses that look like a magazine cover, simply because the owner avoided these 10 mistakes. Most of what we'll cover today, you can fix this very weekend, for little to no money at all. I've put these in a countdown, from number 10 all the way down to number 1. And I promise you, number 1 is something almost everyone is doing right now, without even realizing it. So please, stay with me all the way to the end for that one, because fixing it alone can completely transform the front of your home. And here's a little game to play as we go. Be honest with yourself and count up how many of these you're guilty of. Don't you feel bad now? I've made most of them myself over the years, and that's exactly how I learned. Just keep a tally and tell me your score down in the comments at the end. I'll be reading them. So pour yourself a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and if you love an easy, beautiful yard, go ahead and tap that subscribe button. It really does help this little channel grow. All right, let's count them down. Let's begin our countdown at number 10, planting everything in a single straight soldier-like row. Now, you've absolutely seen this one lonely line of identical little shrubs marching straight across the front of the house, like green soldiers standing at attention. And I understand the instinct completely. It feels neat. It feels orderly. It feels like you're doing it right. But here's the trouble. A single straight row reads as flat, stiff, and frankly, a little cheap. It draws a hard line that actually makes your house look like it's sitting on top of the ground, instead of nestled gracefully into it. The eye gets bored. There's no depth, nothing to travel over, nothing that feels lush or established, and that thin little row does nothing to soften the hard corners and straight lines of the house itself, which is really the whole job of front yard plantings. So, here's the fix, and it costs you nothing extra. Think in layers, and think in curves. Instead of one row, create depth with at least 2 or 3 layers. Taller plants toward the back near the house, medium plants in the middle, and low plants or ground cover spilling toward the front. That layering instantly makes your beds look fuller, richer, and more professionally designed. And then, soften that straight line into a gentle curve. A flowing, curved bed edge feels natural and generous. A ruler straight one feels rigid. Even a slight lazy curve will do wonders. One more little trick the designers use: plant in odd-numbered groupings, 3s, 5s, 7s, rather than dotting single plants evenly apart. Clusters of the same plant read as intentional and abundant. Single plants spaced out like polka dots read as sparse. Here's my personal tip from years of doing this the hard way. Before you plant a single thing, lay your plants out on top of the soil, still in their pots, and then walk all the way out to the street. Look back at your house the way a visitor, or a buyer, would see it. Rearrange them from out there, not from up close. You'll be amazed how different it looks from the curb, and that's the only view that really matters for curb appeal. Get out of the straight row habit, and you've already taken your first big step. Now, let's move on to number 9, a mistake that's quietly causing problems years before you even notice it. Coming in at number 9, ignoring how big a plant will actually get when it grows up. This is one of the most common and most expensive mistakes I see, and it happens because of something completely understandable. You go to the garden center, you see these sweet little plants in their little pots, and you bring a bunch home and tuck them in nice and close so the bed looks full right away. It looks perfect for about 2 years. Then reality arrives. That cute little shrub you planted a foot from the house is now a 6-foot monster pressing against the siding and swallowing the window. Those plants you spaced a foot apart are now elbowing each other, growing leggy and misshapen as they fight for light. And the whole bed that looks so tidy now looks like an overgrown, tangled mess. A crowded, overgrown foundation is one of the fastest ways to make a home look smaller and neglected. The opposite mistake happens too, planting tiny dwarf varieties against a big, tall, 2-story house where they look like an afterthought, completely out of scale with the home behind them. So here's the fix, and it requires just one habit. Read the plant tag and believe it. That little tag tells you the mature width and height. If it says this shrub gets 5 feet wide, then its center needs to be at least 2.5 to 3 feet from the house and from its neighbors. Yes, I know. When you space them properly, the bed looks a little bare and sparse the first year. That's normal. That's correct. Be patient. To fill that gap while everything matures, do what I do. Tuck in some inexpensive annual flowers or a temporary ground cover in the empty spaces for the first season or two. They give you color and fullness right away, and you simply remove them as your permanent plants grow into their proper space, and match the scale of the plant to the scale of the house. A big house needs some bigger, taller plantings to balance it. A low cottage looks best with lower, softer plants. My honest tip, the phrase to tattoo on your gardener's heart is, right plant, right place. Picture the plant at full size before you ever dig the hole. A little patience now saves you years of pruning battles, and a lot of money replacing plants you crammed in too tight. Speaking of looking unkempt, let's talk about number 8. Number 8 on our list, not having clean, defined edges where your garden beds meet the lawn. This one is sneaky because the plants themselves might be perfectly lovely, but if the bed just sort of dissolves into the grass with no clear line, the whole yard reads as fuzzy, messy, and unkempt. The grass creeps into the mulch washes into the grass, and over time everything blends into one blurry, undefined zone. Your eye has nowhere to rest. Here's why this matters so much. A crisp, clean edge is like a frame around a painting. It tells the eye, this is intentional, this is cared for, this is a garden. That single sharp line does more for the polished, expensive look of a yard than almost anything else. And it is completely free. So here's the fix. Take a sharp, flat spade, what folks call an edging spade, and cut a clean trench, about 3 to 4 inches deep, right along the border of your bed. Angle it so you create a little V-shaped channel between the lawn and the mulch. That defined edge stops the grass from creeping in, gives your mulch a place to sit, and creates that beautiful, professional-looking line. A whole front yard of beds can be edged this way in an afternoon, and the transformation is genuinely dramatic. Now, if you'd like something more permanent, you can install edging, steel, stone, brick, or those pavers set right at soil level. I'm personally very fond of a natural stone or a simple steel edge because it's subtle and lasts for years. But please, stay away from that wavy plastic edging that pops up out of the ground. You know the kind I mean. It tends to heave up over winter, it cracks, and honestly, it cheapens the whole look. My tip from experience, whichever method you choose, the magic is in maintaining that edge. Recut your spade edge once or twice a season and pull any grass that tries to sneak across. It takes 10 minutes and keeps everything looking sharp. Here's the truth. You could have the same exact plants in 2 yards, and the one with crisp edges will look twice as expensive. It's that powerful. All right, let's keep going to number 7, which works hand in hand with this one. Number 7, leaving your beds bare or reaching for the wrong kind of mulch. Bare soil between your plants might not seem like a big deal, but it quietly works against you in 3 ways. It looks unfinished and patchy. It lets weeds sprout up freely, so your beds always look a little wild. And it lets the soil dry out fast and crust over, which is hard on your plant's roots. A bed of bare, cracked dirt simply reads as neglected. A nice layer of mulch fixes all 3 problems at once. It gives your beds that rich, finished magazine cover look. It smothers most weeds before they can start, so you're doing far less weeding all summer. It locks moisture into the soil, so you water less. And as natural mulch breaks down, it actually feeds and improves your soil over time. It might be the single highest value, lowest cost thing you can do for your front yard. So here's the fix. Spread a layer of mulch about 2 to 3 inches deep across all your beds. Not much thinner, weeds will push through. And not much thicker, and definitely not piled up against the stems and trunks. That brings me to the one warning. Please don't build those mulch volcanoes, those tall cones of mulch heaped up against the base of a tree or shrub. That traps moisture against the bark, invites rot and pests, and can slowly kill the very plant you're trying to help. Keep mulch pulled back a couple of inches from every stem and trunk, like a donut, not a volcano. Now, about the kind of mulch, and I'll be honest, this is a personal pet peeve of mine. I'd gently steer you away from that bright, artificially dyed red or orange mulch. To my eye, it looks unnatural and frankly cheap, and it can fade to a strange color. Instead, choose a natural shredded hardwood, pine bark, or a dark brown or black natural mulch. A dark, natural mulch makes your plant's colors pop beautifully and gives that high-end, understated look. My tip? Refresh your mulch once a year, usually in spring. You don't need to remove the old layer, just rake it to loosen it up and add a thin, fresh layer on top to restore that rich, dark color. Your whole yard will look brand new in an afternoon. Crisp edges from number 8 plus fresh, dark mulch, those 2 together, and your beds already look like a professional did them. Now let's talk about number 6, where we get into the plants themselves again. At number 6, we have a mistake made by people who love plants a little too much. And I say that with affection because I've been there. It's planting one of everything, with no repetition and no cohesion. Here's what happens. You go to the nursery, and everything is so beautiful that you bring home one of this, one of that, a single one of those, and you tuck them all into the front bed. Each plant is lovely on its own. But all together, with no rhyme or reason, the bed looks busy, chaotic, and restless. The eye doesn't know where to look. It feels less like a designed garden and more like a collection, or honestly, a bit of a jumble. The secret that makes professional landscapes look so calm, expensive, and intentional is actually the opposite instinct: repetition. Designers choose a small palette of plants, maybe just 3 to 5 different kinds, and then repeat them in groups throughout the beds. That repetition creates rhythm and harmony. It pulls the whole front yard together into one cohesive, restful picture. So here's the fix. Pick a limited palette, perhaps 1 evergreen shrub for structure, 1 flowering shrub for color, 1 or 2 perennials, and a ground cover. Then buy several, even many, of each, and plant them in repeating groups. Let that boxwood show up in 3 places. Let that same daylily echo down the bed. When the eye sees the same plant repeated, it reads as deliberate and elegant every single time. This also makes your life easier, by the way. Fewer types of plants means fewer different care routines to remember, fewer specialty needs, and an easier time keeping everything healthy. Simplicity is a gift to your future self. Now, if you're a plant lover like me and you simply must collect your treasures, here's my compromise. Keep 1 small bed, maybe a side bed or a spot in the back, as your collector's corner, where you can play with all your one-of-a-kind specimens to your heart's content. But keep the front yard simple, repeated, and cohesive. That's the part everyone sees. My tip: when in doubt, repeat more and vary less. A front yard with 5 plants repeated beautifully will always look more expensive than one with 25 different plants competing for attention. Less truly is more out front. All right, let's move to number 5 and turn our attention to the most important spot in the whole yard. Number 5, forgetting to make the front entrance feel like a destination. Think about it. Where do you actually want a visitor's eye to land when they look at your home? At the front door. The entry is the heart of your curb appeal, the welcoming handshake of the whole house. And yet, so often, it's the most neglected, bare, and overlooked spot of all. A beautiful yard with a sad, empty, forgotten doorway is a real missed opportunity. When the entrance is bland, no plants, no color, nothing to frame it. The eye has nothing to focus on, and the whole front of the house feels a little cold and unfinished. But when you give that doorway a little love, you create a focal point that makes the entire home feel warm, cared for, and inviting. So here's the fix, and it's a fun one. Start by framing the door. A pair of matching planters, one on each side of the entry, is the single easiest way to make a doorway look intentional and elegant. Fill them with something with a little height and seasonal color, and instantly your entrance feels designed. If you have room, a pair of matching shrubs or small ornamental trees flanking the path does the same job on a larger scale. Then, lead the eye to the door. If you have a walkway, line it with low plants or soft lighting that gently guides a visitor toward the entrance. You want a clear, welcoming path, not a vague stretch of concrete. And don't forget the little finishing touches that cost so little but say so much. A clean doormat, a pretty house number that's actually visible, a wreath on the door, a fresh coat of paint on the door in a color you love. These small details signal care, and care is what reads as expensive. My personal tip: those matching planters by the door are your secret weapon for year-round curb appeal, because you can refresh them with the seasons. Bright annuals in summer, mums in fall, evergreens and branches in winter. So even in January, when the beds are sleeping, your entrance still says, "Someone lovely lives here, and they're glad you came." Give your front door the attention it deserves, and you elevate the entire home. Now let's talk about a mistake that, quite literally, only shows itself after dark. Number 4. Number 4 is one that so many people completely forget about because they only ever judge their yard in the daylight, having no outdoor lighting at all. Here's the thing. For a good half of the year, especially in winter, people come home from work and arrive in the dark. Friends pull up for dinner in the dark. And if your front yard simply disappears into a black void the moment the sun goes down, you're losing half of its beauty and all of its welcome. A dark, unlit house can also feel a little uninviting and even less secure. But a few well-placed lights? Oh, it's pure magic. The right lighting turns your home into something that glows warmly from the curb at night. It highlights your best features, creates depth and drama, and makes the whole place feel high-end and cared for. Honestly, good lighting is one of the biggest wow factor upgrades you can make, and it's far more affordable than people think. So here's the fix, and you do not need an electrician for most of it. Start with simple low-voltage or solar path lights along your walkway. They guide guests to the door and add a gentle, welcoming glow. Then, for real drama, try a couple of uplights at the base of a beautiful tree or angled up against an interesting part of the house. That upward light creates gorgeous shadows and makes a feature really sing after dark. A few gentle guidelines so it looks elegant and not like a runway. Warm, white light is far cozier and more expensive looking than harsh blue-white. Less is more. You're creating soft pools of light and inviting shadow, not lighting up the yard like a stadium, and tuck the fixtures themselves out of sight where you can, so you see the light, not the hardware. My tip: if you're just dipping your toe in, start with good solar path lights. They're inexpensive. There's no wiring at all, and you can have them glowing tonight, then add a low-voltage uplight kit later for that designer touch. Build it up slowly. Even 2 or 3 lights make a remarkable difference. Step outside and look at your home after dark this week. Really look. If it vanishes into blackness, a little light will bring it to life. Now, we're into the top 3, and these are the big ones. Here's number 3. Number 3 on our countdown, a front yard that's all one flat shade of green, with no color and no seasonal interest. Now, green is wonderful. It's the backbone of any garden. But when the entire front of a house is nothing but a wall of the same green shrubs, it falls flat. It looks static, a little boring, and strangely lifeless, even when everything is perfectly healthy. There's nothing to delight the eye, nothing that changes, nothing that makes you stop and smile. And a yard that looks exactly the same in July as it does in October can feel like it's missing a heartbeat. The homes that really glow from the curb almost always have layers of color and something interesting happening in every season. That's the difference between a yard that's merely maintained and one that feels alive and loved. So here's the fix, and the key word is succession. Planting so that something is always going on, no matter the month. Mix in flowering perennials and shrubs with different bloom times. Something for spring, something for summer, something for fall. When the spring bloomers fade, the summer ones take over, and then the fall color steps in. Your yard becomes a slow, beautiful show that changes all year long. And don't think only about flowers. Think about foliage color and texture, too. Silvery lavender, deep burgundy leaves, golden grasses, the fiery fall color of a maple. And lean on plants that carry more than one season. A shrub that flowers in spring and turns brilliant in autumn is doing double duty for you. Then, weave in some evergreens as your anchors. This is the balance. Evergreens give you structure and something to look at in the bleak months, while your perennials and flowering shrubs bring the changing color. Together, they keep the yard interesting 12 months a year. Never bare, never boring. My tip: here's an easy way to plan it. Make a quick list of the 4 seasons and make sure you can name at least one plant that earns its keep in each one. Spring blooms, summer flowers, fall color, and winter structure or berries. If you've got all 4 boxes checked, your front yard will never look flat or lifeless again. A little thoughtful color, spread across the seasons, and your home goes from forgettable to a place people slow down to admire. All right, we're down to the final 2, the mistakes that make the very biggest difference. Here's number 2. Number 2, neglecting the lawn, and especially its edges. For most homes, the lawn is the single largest thing a person sees from the street. It's the green canvas that everything else sits on. And here's the hard truth. You can have gorgeous beds, beautiful plants, fresh mulch. But if the lawn in front of them is patchy, weedy, scalped, or ragged around the edges, the whole property still looks neglected. The lawn sets the tone for everything. Now, I'm not here to tell you that you need a perfect golf course lawn. Goodness, no. That's a lot of work and not everyone wants it. But a tidy lawn, that's absolutely within reach for anyone, and it makes a remarkable difference. So here's the fix, and it's mostly about a few simple habits rather than money. First, don't mow too short. Scalping the grass stresses it, turns it brown, and lets weeds move right in. Raise your mower blade and keep the grass a little taller. It grows healthier, greener, and crowds the weeds out on its own. Second, keep your mower blade sharp. A dull blade tears the grass and leaves those ragged brown tips that make a whole lawn look sickly. But the real secret weapon, the thing that makes a lawn look truly cared for, is edging. Run a string trimmer or a half-moon edger along the driveway, the walkway, and the borders of your beds so the grass ends in a crisp, clean line instead of shaggily spilling over the concrete. I cannot overstate this. That one clean line where the lawn meets the pavement is the difference between someone keeps this place up and this place is a little neglected. It takes minutes and it looks like $1,000,000. Now, if lawn care just isn't your thing, here's a wonderful option. Shrink the lawn. Replace some of that grass with bigger planting beds, ground covers, or low-maintenance landscaping. Less lawn to fuss over, more beauty, and often less work overall. My tip, even if you do nothing else for your grass this week, just edge it. Trim those lines crisp along the drive and walk. It's the fastest, cheapest way to make your entire property instantly look more polished. I promise you'll see the difference from the street. A tidy, well-edged lawn is the frame that makes everything else shine. And now, here we are. Number 1, the mistake almost everyone is making, including, very possibly, you. Let's talk about it. And here it is. The number 1 front yard mistake, the one that almost everyone is guilty of without even realizing it, letting your foundation shrubs grow too big until they swallow the house and cover the windows. This is the big one, and here's why it tops the list. It happens so slowly that you never notice it. Those shrubs you planted along the front of the house grow an inch at a time, year after year, until one day, without you ever deciding it, they're up over the windowsills, crowding the porch, blocking the entry, and pressing right against the walls. And because it happened gradually, you've simply stopped seeing it. But everyone driving by sees it. Overgrown foundation shrubs do 3 terrible things all at once. First, they literally make your house look smaller because they hide the lines of the home and shrink everything down behind a wall of green. Second, they make it look neglected and unkempt, like the yard is winning a battle against the owner. And third, and this is the one people never think about, they block the light from getting into your home. Those covered windows make your rooms dark and gloomy on the inside all day long. You're losing curb appeal and sunshine, so here's the fix, and it is so satisfying. Go out to the street, turn around, and look at your house honestly. Are the shrubs creeping up over the bottoms of your windows? Are they hiding the front door or the porch? If so, it's time to act. If the shrubs are healthy and just overgrown, prune them back, hard if you have to well below the windowsills, ideally keeping foundation plants no taller than the bottom of your windows. Suddenly, the windows are revealed, light pours in, and the house can breathe again. If a shrub is simply too big for the spot, or so old and woody that pruning won't save its shape, be brave and take it out, and replace it with a properly sized dwarf variety that will stay in scale. Remember, right plant, right place, from number 9. The transformation when you do this is genuinely breathtaking. I've seen homes look 10 years younger and noticeably larger in a single afternoon, just from freeing the windows and the entry from overgrown shrubs. It's like the house finally lifts its head and smiles. My tip? Make this a yearly habit. Once a year, prune your foundation plants back to keep them below the windows and away from the walls. Don't wait until they've taken over again. A little trim each year keeps your home looking open, bright, and beautifully maintained. Forever. So be honest with me. Was number 1 a little too close to home? Don't feel bad. Go free those windows this weekend and watch your whole house transform. And there you have it, the 10 most common front yard mistakes, counting all the way down to that big number 1. And remember what I told you at the start, almost none of these cost much money to fix. They just take a little attention and a weekend or 2. Fix even 3 or 4 of these, and I promise your home will look bigger, brighter, and far more expensive from the curb. So tell me down in the comments. Be honest, how many were you guilty of? I'll go first. For years, I let my own foundation shrubs creep right up over the windows, so number 1 had my name written all over it. Share your score and tell me which one you're going to fix first, and your growing zone, so I can cheer you on right where you live. I read every single comment. And while you're down there, say a kind hello to someone else from your part of the world. That's how this little garden community grows, one friendly neighbor at a time. Now, if you found this helpful, I think you'll love what's coming next. I'm putting together a video on the best plants to instantly boost your curb appeal and add real value to your home, including a few that look far more expensive than they actually cost. So make sure you're subscribed with the bell turned on so it lands right in your feed. Until next time, this is Eleanor. Keep your hands in the soil and your heart in the garden. Take care now. Bye-bye.